Hello everyone and welcome to another session of AP Human Geography with Mr. Elrod. Today we're going to continue on in Unit 7 discussing cities and urban land use. And today what we're going to be looking at is a couple of issues that are related to modern urban development, especially with dealing primarily with some of the current problems that urban areas face, especially in terms of high concentrations of poverty, some discussion on what typically is perceived as racial animosity and racial angst. So some of these issues can be fairly charged issues. I'm going to try and keep it relatively moderate, and let you kind of form your own opinion on the things if you want to go look at these a little bit in further detail. The topic here says political organization and urban sprawl. So what's happening over time, as we've seen, and we talked about this idea of urbanization, we talked about urban sprawl, but what's happening over time as suburban sprawl continues to move out, and even now in some of the urban areas that is starting to take place as well. People that are living in those particular communities are not overly happy with the way that development is taking place. And so in order to try and create more control over the development of their particular area and gain control away from either maybe the county commissioners, or maybe they're part of a city or another county, or they don't want to be absorbed by another city. So what the local people will do is they will end up creating their very own city. They do what they call incorporate into a particular city. So what that means is that particular city goes through and actually creates its own city, meaning that it becomes its own independent political entity. And so that means it creates its own government. The people pay their own taxes towards that local government, and they start providing their own government services. Now, where this is becoming a problem, and the reason that it becomes a problem, is mainly because of tax money and mainly because of the financial issue that it creates. Because what we're seeing increasingly is that wealthy areas within counties, or wealthy communities within counties, are formulating their own cities to try and maybe move away from some of what they perceive to be the problems that are created by the poor sections of their county or the poorer sections of their community. Now, again, so the main problem is that the tax money isn't going to go to the larger community, the larger county, the larger, the other city, those types of things. A perfect example of this is around us, there's a town not too far from here called Johns Creek. Several years ago, Johns Creek wanted to incorporate and create its own city. Johns Creek was unincorporated. It was a part of larger Fulton County, which is the county that the city of Atlanta resides in. And the northern portion of Fulton County is fairly well-to-do, it's fairly wealthy. It has maybe some places that you've heard of maybe on the news. Anyway, it's a fairly wealthy section of the county. And the southern section of Fulton County is closer towards the city of Atlanta. It tends to be relatively poor. You have some issues with urban poverty and things like that. And so with that, you have kind of the social class and that kind of animosity that begins to rise up. And also you have kind of thrown in there some of the racial components as well. But anyway, Johns Creek argued that they were not happy with the services they were being provided by Fulton County, especially when it came to police services and fire services and EMS services, and so they wanted to break away, create their own city so that they could begin to provide those services to themselves. And so it was a huge fight. There's a lot of nasty words said, but eventually Johns Creek became its own city, and you don't hear a whole lot about it anymore, but I'm sure there's still some animosity and tension over that particular situation. Another good example, even near where we go to school, there's a town, or not even a town, a little community called Sharon Springs in Forsyth County, and they've been talking about incorporating and creating their own city because they are upset with the way that Forsyth County has gone about its plans of development, and so they want to separate and kind of move forward with their own plans of development, zoning, things like that, because we have a lot of neighborhoods that are popping up out here, and a lot of people are concerned about the infrastructure, things along those lines. So again, this idea of creating cities and incorporating it creates tensions and problems, mainly because of the money issue and also the perception of the racial perception of racial angst and animosity of one group of people thinking that they're better than another, or don't want their money to go towards another group of people. And so you see a lot of that take place as some of these issues are arising. Some other things that begin to happen, especially if you look out in the suburban areas, what happens is that in the suburban areas, a lot of times what happens is policies are put into place that can be perceived as financial roadblocks to the poor. The communities would say, well, they're just trying to maintain property values, they're just trying to maintain a nice community that they tried to establish when they moved out of the cities and things like that. But in reality, what happens is the communities that are created are simply just too expensive for people of lower economic levels to be able to afford. You can kind of take that as you like. Maybe some of the issues that they do, or some of the issues that are created, are things like, well, first of all, there just isn't the zoning or the building of low-income housing. A lot of times in these upper communities, you have single-family housing, and it's going to be relatively expensive. For instance, in our community immediately, in the immediate area, you probably can't find a new construction house for under $300,000. Even some of the older homes are going for in the $200,000 to $300,000 range because of just kind of the desire for real estate in our community. So there's and even sometimes in the county planning, they won't even allow for not single family housing, but multi-family housing, low income housing. Certainly, people don't want them to put in apartment buildings, condos, things, townhomes and things along those lines. Now, in our community, there are those things, but they're just in different sections of town, pockets of town. And a lot of times, even when they talk about putting in things like that, there's a great deal of protest, and the people in the community get upset about that. You look at other things like there's no public transit, no mass transit, difficult to access things like buses, and for those who have lower income and have a hard time, getting around or obtaining independent transportation, it makes it very difficult for them to live in the suburbs. Or you can look at these communities and some of these homes, just the fees that are created that kind of add additional cost to the cost of living. Especially out in the suburbs, you have a lot of HOAs that are established, and a lot of people have a love-hate relationship with HOAs. They love to hate them. And so it's not just you not only having to pay for the house payment, but you're also having to pay for the HOA fees as well. And so, this is the condition of the suburban space. This is the condition of these areas and these communities. And again, a lot of people in the communities will simply say they're just trying to maintain a certain standard of living for themselves, their community, and things like that. Others will say they're simply trying to keep out the poor from their community. Some other issues that we begin to see are the development of what's called ghettoization and uneven development. So this term ghettoization historically was referring to the areas in which the Jewish population was forced to move to during the Middle Ages, and you talk about also during World War II. But in this case, we're talking about the increasing concentration of urban poverty, and it's kind of this compounding effect. When you have an increasingly impoverished urban population, things just kind of go out of control. Mainly because with the increasing impoverished population, those who maybe have a little bit more money, middle class, upper class, they simply don't care to live in those particular areas, so they move out, and so you have issues like your tax base goes down. Typically, crime is going to be relatively prevalent in those areas as well. Businesses are going to have a hard time staying open because of their inability to maybe have sufficient clientele, or because of the crime in the particular area, the business would rather just close up and move elsewhere. Establishing public services because of a low tax base, really just kind of compounding sets of issues, which is what leads to this idea of this concept of uneven development. And uneven development is simply when you have two sections of town, or you have two areas in the community where typically one tends to be the wealthier section of town and one tends to be the poorer section of town. And so with that, typically the nicer stuff goes in the nice section of town, and the not as nice stuff goes in the not as nice section of town. And so obviously the problems there are that the people in the section of town that's the poorer section of town have have a harder time getting access to some of the nicer facilities, whether it's the better schools, whether it's the nicer library, the nicer park, whether it's getting out of areas with high crime rates, things like that. And that is, this kind of compounding problem is what we refer to as cumulative causation, where kind of the problem perpetuates itself because of kind of the bad rap or the bad reputation that an area might get, or because of things like low tax base, high crime rates, poor schools. Just the issue becomes even more compounded. Clayton County Schools a couple years ago in Metro Atlanta lost their accreditation for their school system, and that created additional issues. I mean, the county was already having issues, but then it created additional issues because even more people wanted to leave the area because their kids, if they graduate from schools there, they wouldn't be graduating with an accredited degree from the high school, and make it very difficult for them to get into college. So you have this huge fleeing of people from Clayton County trying to go to their schools in other counties, and so it's just this compounding effect. So the question, why does this happen? It's people throw out a variety of theories and ideas as to why this happens. But really, the idea, people want to go to a place where they have better opportunities, and so when a place gets a bad reputation, unless it can somehow turn that reputation around, it's just going to continue to drive people away from that particular place. And then those maybe who are stuck there because of financial hardship or their inability to move from the place because of their inability to finance the move are just kind of stuck in a bad situation. And that is just kind of the general problem. You could say that's the general problem with a lot of places, not just urban areas, but rural areas. You have similar issues, and even some suburban areas where you have kind of this division between nicer sections of town and sections of town that have higher concentrations of poverty. So anyway, I believe that's all we're going to have time for today. I hope you found that to be helpful. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave those in the comment box below, and I hope to see you next time.